and tell you a little bit about Remedios Varo. I'm going to start off with some biographical information and then lead into a bit of an analysis of her paintings. An artist truly shaped by the times, Remedios Varo's paintings access an escapist realm for the spirit, instigated by the cruel world events she witnessed in her 54 years of life from 1908 to 1963. Several sources mark Varo as being a lost surrealist painter. This is largely due to her life of constant upheaval and exile, having fled both the Spanish Civil War and World War II. As such, she was noted to be under-recognized in European art scenes and Latin American art scenes, having partially belonged to both. Her experiences of exile would be formative in the existential and spiritual content of her paintings. Varo is known for her mystical figurative work of women or ambiguously gendered people with heart-shaped faces and almond-shaped eyes. The worlds they exist within are simultaneously earthly, mechanical, and cosmic. The paintings present gracefully crafted, feminist undertones which recognize gender systems as oppressive, reiterate the interconnectedness of all life, and create a world wherein the figures are master creators, builders, and mathematicians. Varo was noted to be gifted in the arts at a very young age, but her professional career initially begins in her teenage years when she attends the San Fernando Academy in Madrid to study art. While she's there, she marries Gerardo Zaraga, a fellow San Fernando student, as a way to legitimize leaving her family and Catholicism, both authoritarian and patriarchal systems which she found oppressive. This relationship with Lizarraga would be the beginning of a series of marriages, or perhaps mad loves, that would not last, as they broke it off soon after she graduated. In 1937, she married French surrealist poet Benjamin Paret, and they met only a year earlier while he was in Madrid fighting alongside the anarchist movement amid the Spanish Civil War. Paret would be her gateway to the surrealists when they moved to Paris in 1937 to flee the war. In Paris, Varo meets many influential surrealist characters like Andre Breton, Paul Eluard, Leonora Carrington, and Max Ernst. Her interest in mechanical, animal, and metaphysical worlds was affirmed in her contact with this group. She later removed herself from the group, both due to the destruction of World War II, but also from the differences in their ideology, mainly the patriarchal undercurrents of the surrealist group and their art. In an interview from 1957, she describes, in retrospect, her experience with the group of men as one fraught with intimidation. She states, "Yes, I attended those meetings where they talked a lot and one learned various things. Sometimes I participated with works in their exhibitions. My position was one of a timid and humble listener. I was not old enough, nor did I have the aplomb to face up to them, to a Paul Eluard, a Benjamin Paret, or an Andre Breton. I was with an open mouth within this group of brilliant and gifted people. I was together with them because I felt a certain affinity. Today, I do not belong to any group. I paint what occurs to me, and that is all." A lot of surrealist theories are very gendered, and often women were only used as a means to bring about the artwork, like in Breton's novel Nadia, wherein Nadia is the portal to Breton's creative output and metaphor to his relationship with surrealism. Similarly, the femme fatale, muse, and goddess described by Breton and Paret, woman, although put on a pedestal as a figure of central importance, was being relegated to the status of object. Such status, although seemingly flattering, is ultimately limiting. Paret, Varo, and many others fled to Mexico in 1941. Varo's marriage to Paret would end in 1947 when Paret moved back to Paris and Varo stayed in Mexico. This began what would be the last 10 years of her life, known as her Década Mexicana period, where she made hundreds of paintings in the style she is now most known for. The creation of birds is a painting which beautifully balances the synthesis of ideas that Varo had been ruminating on within these previously mentioned experiences. In this painting, we are shown her interest in the arcane, alchemical, astrological, animal, and mathematical worlds. The figure is solitary here, maybe even hermetic, as in many of her paintings, recalling how she may have felt during these last few years of her life. However, the figure is in complete control, cosmic control of their creation as a full collaborator with the moon and the stars. The figure is also removed from gender in many archetypal ways, as they move more into the realm of animal than the human. Her paintings, full of complex narrative and formal compositional elements, had to be carefully planned beforehand, whereas many of her contemporaries created from a base of psychic automatism, which is another way in which Varo differed from the surrealist group. Perhaps this allowed her to have more intention with her narratives. Many of Varo's paintings deal with a general sense of esoterica, seemingly made as a part of Varo's completely and intimately imagined world. She certainly believes in magic, in a mystical sense, but also in the mundane, or perhaps with an interconnection between the two. In the painting Harmony from 1956, Varo says that the character is trying to find the invisible thread that ties everything together. There is an androgynous figure sitting at a desk, and an apparition appearing from the wall. Together, they are orchestrating, quite literally, natural ephemera along the bars of floating sheet music, as though assessing the properties of this life matter in a pseudo-scientific way. A similar scene is depicted in the painting Sympatia, or Sympathy, from 1955, where an androgynous figure and an orange cat are centered in some divine celestial event. Varo's figures are dutiful, frequently appearing at a desk positioned in a room of infinite possibility. This is a far comparison to the ways, for example, that René Magritte might have depicted femme people, or anyone really. Not a diss on Magritte, I'm just pointing out this is a pretty stark contrast. Another theme which repeats in Varo's work is the idea of the journey, one often made by a mysterious vehicle or watercraft. These paintings reflect on her familiar relationship with travel. In addition to fleeing from 2 wars, her early childhood was marked by constant travel with her family all around North Africa. The theme could also symbolize dreams as a vessel, or a vehicle into the unconscious mind, for Varo was interested in Freud's theories, just like the core surrealist, though not as obsessively. As her life was a constant quest for meaning and identity, the journey she depicts can be seen as symbolic of her spiritual pilgrimage, a psychic journey inward through the unfolding levels of awareness, as it parallels the journeys she had on the earthly plane. A reference to psychoanalysis also comes up in her painting Woman Leaving the Psychoanalyst's Office from 1961, in the title alone, but also the name on the door is Dr. F.J.A., a reference to Freud, Jung, and Adler. She had a serious interest in religion that was not met with mutual regard in the surrealist group, even though her interest was not explicitly in the Catholicism that she was raised on. In fact, like the surrealists, she was opposed to patriarchal structures of the church. Rather, she included ambiguous and esoteric symbols or references from an amalgam of world religions, making her paintings raise many questions about the nature of religion and religious belief. She uses religion not as a cultural touchstone, but as a psychic and a mystic one. Perhaps it's safer to say that Varo was not a religious person, but a spiritual person, as she regularly confronts the patriarchal creationist narratives written into so many religious cultures, and transforms the creators into women or androgynous figures. Her narratives are supported by her being very well read in religious texts, as Deborah Haynes writes in a passage from The Art of Remedios Varo, Issues of Gender Ambiguity and Religious Meaning. She states, Varo's religious eclecticism was evident in her library, which contained an astonishing range of books. Russian mystic George Georgiev, the complete works of Sigmund Freud and Carl Jung, materials reflecting Hindu and Buddhist spirituality, even 20th century Christian mystics had a place in Varo's embracing intellect. Her library also contained books on alchemy, Pythagorean ideas, numerology, and sacred geometry. It is apparent that Varo had felt a calling, an attempt to piece all of this information together from a myriad of contexts and practices, and transform it into a digestible visual form. Although a calling might seem a bit self-righteous in retrospect, this work was coming from post-World War II era, and a woman looking back on a very unstable life. She would have been looking for explanations and control. In her painting The Call from 1961, she is literally enlightened as she emits a glow, appearing as though she floated out of a broken star. Around her neck is an alchemist's glass mortar, and in her hands a mysterious vessel, the only two things tying her to this earthly realm. In the text, Remedios Varo, Voyages and Visions, Jane Kaplan describes this painting as a sort of self-portrait, stating, "She has been summoned and chosen to carry the magic elixir as an initiate in the search for transcendence. Alone, isolated in her awareness, she embarks on a quest that demands courage and determination." In the next section, I talk about her death, and I want to just give a quick trigger warning. If you're sensitive in any way to that sort of content, just pause me for a minute here. I won't talk about it for long, and it's not especially gruesome or graphic or anything like that, but just wanted to give a warning. So, Remedios Varo died in 1963 from a sudden and unexpected heart attack, but there are speculations that she may have taken her own life. This makes the last painting she ever made, Still Life Being Resurrected, especially difficult to digest. In congruence with so many of her previous works, there is a table, there is a ghostly force present, there is a room, but in contrast there is no figure. In fact, it is one of the only paintings of Varo's on record without a human figure. A strange but fitting adieu. Whether or not she planned her own death, it seems that somehow she felt it. Though in her lifetime she was never officially a part of the surrealist group, it wasn't until after her death that Andre Breton claimed her work to be a part of the surrealist cause. Varro would have likely felt indifferent to Breton's declaration, as she was fairly comfortable in her obscurity. She once stated in an interview, "I do not wish to talk about myself because I hold very deeply the belief that what is important is the work, not the person." Similar to the surrealists, Varro was interested in the uncanny, the unconscious mind, dreams, the bohemian lifestyle, and she certainly embraced mad love, with a total of 3 marriages and some affairs. Like the surrealists, she believed in questioning one's reality and belief systems, and through her artwork, inciting others to do the same. However, Varro's feminist values and explicit interest in religion diverted her a bit from the group. The majority of Varro's paintings were made in the last 13 years of her life, truly acting as a collection of her life's experiences. 2 wars, extensive travels, bizarre friends and lovers, and of course, her spiritual quest.